The council hall of Virix 9 was unlike anything found on Earth. The chamber floated inside a glass dome, suspended above the moon's surface by invisible energy columns. From here, delegates could see the dark curve of space and the glowing planet below, wrapped in rings of blue mist. Stars twinkled beyond, and warships from dozens of species hovered silently in orbit, silent, watchful, and tense. Inside the hall, representatives of over 60 spacefaring civilizations gathered around a wide circular floor. The air shimmered faintly, controlled by climate systems tailored to dozens of alien biology types. There were chittering insects in metallic robes, gas cloud beings in hover pods, tall feathered diplomats with golden eyes, and the cold, scaled warriors of the Zelari Dominion. At the center stood the High Chancellor, Varnox, tall and armored, his long black robe trimmed with silver. He watched the chamber with narrowed eyes. His voice echoed, "We call this emergency session to order. The species known as humanity has requested recognition as an advanced sovereign power. They claim technological developments which exceed current galactic standards. Let them show proof." A low murmur swept the hall. Most believed humans were still primitive, reckless newcomers who had barely begun interstellar travel. They had no place here. But rumors had spread. Whispers of impossible ships, energy readings no one could explain. From a side gate, a group of humans stepped forward. They wore dark blue uniforms with simple silver trim. At their front walked Captain Mira Solon, calm, composed, her eyes sharp and steady. She bowed respectfully, then looked around the chamber. Her voice was steady and clear. "We thank the Council for this audience. Humanity does not seek war. We seek recognition and peace through strength. What we are about to show you is not meant as a threat, but as proof of our progress." She raised a hand. A signal was sent. Outside, in low orbit above the moon, a ship appeared. It didn't glide into view. It folded into existence. There was no sound, no flash. One moment, the sky was empty. The next, a sleek obsidian ship hung in place. The Eventide was longer than a battleship, but moved with the smoothness of a small craft. It had no engines visible, no heat emissions, no weapon ports. A wave of shock rippled through the chamber. "That's impossible," someone hissed. "A trick," said a Zelari commander. Mira remained still. "You are now observing the Eventide, one of several vessels equipped with fold drive capability. It bends space, allowing instantaneous relocation without energy trails." The ship vanished. Then, without warning, it appeared just above the glass dome, then again directly beside a floating council cruiser. The cruiser's shields flared, detecting no intrusion, no radiation. The Eventide returned to orbit and went still. Another signal. A smaller craft detached from its hull. It descended toward the council hall. The chamber's defense grid activated. The High Chancellor barked a warning, but the ship stopped mid-air, hovering peacefully. Mira spoke again. "This drone carries no weapons, only a data core. Inside is the complete scan of the artifact that led to our advancement, and our research available only if Earth is granted protected status." The drone gently lowered itself to the platform and opened. The hologram that emerged showed swirling equations, alien symbols, and gravitational blueprints no known species had ever seen. Silence. Even Varnox was speechless for a moment. Then his voice came, low and tight. "Technology like this does not appear naturally. You have found something, or someone. Where did you get this?" Mira's eyes narrowed just slightly. "We found it buried in ice on our own planet. Abandoned, forgotten. We studied it. We learned. That's all. You expect us to believe you built this in secret?" Varnox said. "Impossible. Humans are clever, but not this clever. Mira stepped closer to the center of the circle. Earth has always been underestimated. We're done hiding. The murmurs turned into full conversations. Council members argued, debated. Some looked impressed, others afraid. Alliances shifted in moments. The High Chancellor raised a hand. This matter requires deep review, but let it be known, until further investigation, Earth's technology is to be restricted. No sharing, no expansion. Any attempt to deploy these ships beyond Sol system borders will be seen as a threat. Mira didn't flinch. Understood, but we will defend ourselves, and we are no longer alone. The meeting ended. Outside the dome, the eventide vanished again. No light, no trail, just gone. Every major empire would spend the next week scrambling their fleets, questioning their spies, and wondering what had just changed. They were right to worry. 12 years earlier, the world had been on the edge of collapse. Climate disasters, wars over dwindling resources, and growing political divides had pushed Earth into chaos. The United Nations dissolved, new alliances formed, but nothing lasted. Then, something changed, not through politics or peace talks, but through an accident. It happened in Antarctica. A deep-sea drilling team, working off the southern coast under contract for a collapsed energy conglomerate, detected strange magnetic pulses under the ice. The readings didn't match any natural formation. Curiosity turned to alarm when unmanned probes were pulled off course by invisible forces. The scientists uncovered something massive buried deep under the ice shelf, a dark, geometric structure humming with quiet energy. It was smooth and warm to the touch, even in sub-zero temperatures. No seams, no rust. It had been there for thousands of years. When the first team entered, most of their equipment failed. Lights flickered, communication dropped. Only 3 researchers returned. One was Mira Solan's older brother, Elias. He said nothing for weeks, only stared at the ceiling of his hospital room, sketching impossible symbols on the walls with trembling fingers. Governments fought over what to do, but then something even more impossible happened. The structure began to respond. It shared data, not in words but in pulses, diagrams, and gravitational patterns. The world's best physicists couldn't fully explain it, but it worked. In the years that followed, scientists reverse-engineered gravity stabilizers, fold space calculations, and new materials far stronger than anything on Earth. The global crisis ended almost overnight. Power grids stabilized. Transportation leapt forward. Old enemies suddenly had something more valuable to focus on, shared survival in a much larger universe. Elias never recovered. He disappeared during the first manned experiment with the prototype fold drive. Mira had been only 22 at the time, working in orbital repair. She had no plan to become a leader, but when her brother vanished, something inside her changed. She joined the Earth Space Initiative, pushed into engineering, and later tested the first ship built with alien-modified tech. She never forgot the last words he spoke to her. They left it for us, not as a gift, but as a question. Now standing aboard the Eventide, Mira watched the stars from her command deck. The demonstration on Virix 9 had ended, but the reaction was just beginning. The Council hadn't given an answer yet, but she could feel the fear. The Zalari would move quickly. They couldn't afford to let Earth upset the balance of power. She turned to Commander Harrow, her second-in-command. A quiet man, former physicist, now her most trusted officer. Status of the fleet, she asked. All 5 ships are cloaked and stable in orbit. No energy leaks, no scans detected, but we've been pinged by 2 Council observation satellites. Zalari, he nodded. They're watching. Mira didn't sigh. She had trained herself not to show weakness in front of her crew. Instead, she stared at the growing planet of Virix 9 outside the viewport, then turned away. In the ship's secure lab, she reviewed the original alien data again. Most of it had already been cracked and applied to the fleet, but one file remained untouched. It was encrypted in layers her best minds couldn't break. Not even Earth's AI cores could decode it. She stared at the title, written in alien symbols, Sequence 0. Elias had mentioned it once, just before the experiment that took his life. He had said it was locked for a reason. Outside, stars pulsed. A message came through. Incoming transmission. Galactic Council Private Channel. High Chancellor Varnox's face appeared. His eyes were cold. Captain Solon, we are initiating review protocols. Until this is complete, Earth must remain within its system. Any movement beyond soul boundaries will be treated as escalation. Mira kept her voice steady. We have no intention to escalate, Chancellor. He tilted his head slightly. Good, but be warned, technology like yours invites attention, and not all attention is friendly. The feed cut off. Commander Harrow spoke softly. That was a warning. No, Mira said. That was a threat. Later that evening, aboard the Eventide, Mira stood alone in the observation bay. She touched the glass with one hand, remembering Earth below, her family, the price of what they had built. The alien structure still sat buried under the ice, shut down now, silent, but deep in her bones she felt it wasn't finished. It had shared just enough to tip the balance, then closed itself again. A gift, a warning, or something else entirely. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. Security breach. Internal system alert. Mira snapped to attention. Show me. On the screen a tiny blinking signal glowed inside the engine room. A tracking beacon. Someone had planted it inside the ship. From the Council. From the Zalari. Either way it meant one thing. Someone was already trying to sabotage Earth's future. Mira stood silently in the Eventide's engine room, staring at the blinking beacon. It was small, no larger than a coin, and hidden behind a panel near the ship's quantum stabilizer. Only someone with technical knowledge could have placed it there without triggering alarms. Commander Harrow arrived a moment later, eyes sharp, voice low. It's active, broadcasting a low-frequency signal. Encrypted. Encrypted how? Mira asked. He passed her a datapad. Zalari code. Military grade. Old format, but still in use. Someone wanted to track the fold drive signature. Mira's stomach tightened. This ship has never left our control. Whoever planted that was on board during the council meeting. The implications were serious. Council security had allowed only a few designated boarding inspections before the demonstration. Mira pulled up the visitor logs. A handful of technicians, one team from the Trade Guild, one from the Zalari delegation. She tapped on the list. Cross-check all bioscans. Run facial pattern analysis. Pull all internal cam footage from the last 48 hours. Harrow nodded and moved quickly. Mira stood still for a moment longer. Sabotage this early meant fear. Varnox or someone working under him was already moving against Earth, and the Council wouldn't help. Not yet. They were too divided, too afraid of choosing the wrong side. 12 hours later, inside the Eventide's secure meeting room, Mira sat with her senior officers and reviewed the evidence. They had their suspect, one of the Zalari tech advisors who had inspected the ship during docking. The footage showed him pause for less than 3 seconds at the engine bay, just long enough. He had diplomatic clearance, no scans, no searches. He's already back aboard his vessel, Harrow said. We sent a formal protest. No reply. What about the council? Mira asked. Lieutenant ASI, the diplomatic officer, shook her head. No one's responding directly. A few mid-tier delegates expressed concern, quietly. But Varnox has influence. No one will accuse the Zalari without hard proof. And even then, it might not matter. Mira leaned back. Her thoughts churned. Earth had entered the galactic stage with power. But they still lacked something just as important: trust. Most species saw humans as newcomers with dangerous toys. Until that changed, Mira knew they stood alone. Still, fear could be used. We respond quietly, Mira said. We don't lash out, but we prepare. If they want to play dirty, we'll be ready. The next day, Mira left the Eventide to attend a closed diplomatic session at the Council Dome. The structure was high above the Virex 9 surface, transparent walls showing the void beyond. Inside, the air smelled faintly of metal and ozone. She met with representatives from 3 neutral systems, Volatari, Indaric, and the Myra Axis. All had sent observers to the demonstration. None had spoken out openly. "I came here to prevent conflict," Mira said, facing them directly. "Not start it. But someone planted a tracking beacon inside our vessel, someone with Council access. That's not just an attack on Earth. That's an attack on the Council's integrity." The Myra delegate, a tall plant-like being with shifting petals for a face, leaned forward. "You think the Zalari are behind it?" "I know it," Mira replied. The Indaric representative spoke cautiously. "Varnox will deny everything, and many worlds still rely on Zalari trade routes. What you're asking, I'm asking for nothing," Mira said, cutting him off. "But I won't sit still while my people are threatened. If Earth is isolated, we'll defend ourselves. If we have allies, we'll protect them too." There was a long silence. Then the Volatari delegate spoke. "Send us a copy of the beacon's code, quietly. If your evidence is strong, some of us may begin discussions." Mira nodded. It wasn't much, but it was a start. That evening, Mira walked through the Eventide's observation deck. The stars were calm, distant, watching. Her mind was full: strategy, risk, the constant pressure of being the voice for an entire planet. She paused when she saw a message waiting for her on the private channel. Encrypted vertical bar, unknown source message. "You're not the only one they're watching." It was unsigned. She stared at it for several long seconds. Who else was being targeted? Or was it a warning meant to scare her off? She saved the message, locked the file, and turned off the display. The next morning, a new alert arrived. A Council patrol ship, manned by a mixed crew of diplomats and scientists, had been attacked while observing a passing asteroid belt near Earth's claimed boundary zone. One of Earth's new vessels had been nearby. The accusation came instantly: human aggression, unauthorized movement, violation of Council limits. Mira's blood ran cold. She knew none of their ships had been ordered into that sector, unless someone had taken control or planted a false signal. She opened the channel to Earth High Command. "Prepare to recall all outer patrols. Lock all ship drives under direct command protocols. Someone's trying to frame us." The game had begun, and the first move had just been played. The Council's emergency broadcast hit every major communication hub in the galaxy. Human vessel sighted near restricted observation zone. Council patrol ship disabled. Formal investigation underway. All Earth movements beyond Sol system now considered a violation. Mira stood at the center of the Eventide's command bridge, the message playing again on the main screen. Her crew remained silent, eyes fixed on her. Commander Harrow waited by her side. "We didn't do this," Mira said, her voice calm but edged with anger. "Pull logs from every ship. I want time stamps, energy signatures, drive sequences, everything." Harrow nodded and moved quickly. The bridge lit up with screens and data projections. Across Earth's fleet, engineers and AI systems worked to confirm the same thing. No ship had moved without orders. But the damage was done. The attack had happened, and a ship that looked human had been spotted nearby. Council delegates now turned cold. Channels that were open days ago went silent. The few friendly voices Mira had begun to reach out to had gone quiet or were reassigned. Even the Myra and Volatari delegates stopped returning messages. It was clear Earth was being isolated. Mira returned to her private quarters and opened the encrypted message she had received earlier. "You're not the only one they're watching." She stared at the words. Someone knew what was happening. Someone outside her team. Hours later, Harrow returned with data. "We finished the analysis," he said. "All 5 Earth ships accounted for. None entered that sector. Then the ship they saw was a decoy. And not just a fake image. Someone built a physical replica of our design. Same hull shape, same signal bounce. Just dirty enough to cause confusion." Mira exhaled slowly. "Zalari." Harrow nodded. "Almost certainly. And we think we know how they got the specs." He tapped a screen, revealing a blurry image, the Zalari tech advisor who had planted the tracking beacon. A second image appeared, him meeting with another figure on Virex 9's lower docks, far outside official channels. No name, no record, but Zalari posture, high ranking, likely intelligence. They got more than navigation data, Harrow said. They got access to our hull design, enough to make a mock-up, and now they're framing us for an attack. Mira leaned back. Her face showed no emotion, but her mind moved fast. The Zalari weren't just testing Earth's patience, they were trying to provoke a mistake. If Earth lashed out, the Council would unite against them. If they did nothing, they'd be buried under sanctions and suspicion. And that's when a third option arrived. A secure message came from deep space. No ID, masked signal, routed through 5 relay points. Mira nearly dismissed it until the final tag caught her eye. Sequence 0 fragment detected. Coordinates attached. Sequence 0, the encrypted file inside the alien artifact, the one no one could unlock. Mira stared at the data. It pointed to a small abandoned relay station near the asteroid fields where the attack had occurred. A neutral zone. She made her decision. The Eventide jumped in silently, alone. No support, no broadcast. Just Mira, Harrow, and a small team of engineers and security. The relay station drifted in silence. Cold metal, dim lights, no signs of life. But the signal was active, coming from inside. They boarded with weapons drawn. Inside they found wreckage. Someone had recently been there. Doors were scorched, systems wiped. But in the main core room, a device was left behind. A message embedded into it, locked in quantum code. The voice that played back was familiar. Elias Solon. Mira's breath caught. If you're hearing this, you found part of the answer. The artifact, it's not a weapon, it's a beacon. The technology it gave us isn't just advanced, it's a message, a test. Someone, something is watching, waiting to see how we use it. And if we misuse it, the recording cut off. Corrupted. Harrow looked at Mira. Your brother, he's alive. I don't know, she said quietly. But he knew more than we did. She took the device and ordered the team to sweep the rest of the station. But there was no trace of who left it. No ships nearby. Whoever planted it was gone. When the Eventide returned to Virex 9 orbit, Council guards immediately surrounded them. 2 Zalari ships moved into formation, weapons charged but not locked. A stern Council broadcast came through. Captain Mira Solon, you are requested to appear before the emergency tribunal. Immediate compliance is expected. Mira turned to Harrow. They're closing in. They're afraid. He nodded. What's the plan? She looked at the screen again, then back at her crew. We don't wait anymore. We show them what fear looks like when it's turned back at them. She walked to the main console and opened a secure link to Earth. Activate defense protocol. Orion, lock all fold drives under my command. If we're forced to move, we move first. Down on Virex 9, High Chancellor Varnox received word of the Eventide's return. He smiled behind closed doors. Let her stand tall, he said to his aide. We'll strike harder when she falls. But he didn't know what Mira had found. And he didn't know that Elias's message had already spread. The game had changed again. The stars around the Vega system were sharp and cold, their pale light reflecting off the hull of the Eventide. Captain Mira Solon stood at the center of her bridge, eyes fixed on the vast empty darkness ahead. There were no ships in sight yet, but the sensors told a different story. A Zalari fleet was coming. 9 vessels, 2 war carriers, 1 command cruiser, unmistakable in its design. Varnox was bringing his power straight to Earth's door. He wasn't hiding behind Council rules anymore. He wasn't trying to blame or manipulate. He was sending a message, submit or be crushed, and Mira had no intention of submitting. She turned to her crew, initiate cloak. Keep drives warm, all weapons offline unless I say otherwise. Yes, Captain, Commander Harrow replied. The crew moved fast and silently. They knew what was coming. They'd seen the reports, the sabotage, the Council's silence. The time for diplomacy was ending. But Mira wasn't looking for war. She was planning to win without firing a shot. The Eventide floated at the edge of the system, behind the orbit of Vega's outermost gas giant. The other Earth ships stayed hidden further out, cloaked and silent as planned. Mira stood alone in the command chamber, watching a direct feed from their long-range scanners. The Zalari ships arrived in tight formation. Their dark hulls shimmered under the starlight. The lead ship, Varnox's flagship, was at the center, its silhouette unmistakable. He was here in person. He wanted to see Earth surrender with his own eyes. Mira opened a channel. "This is Captain Mira Solon of Earth. You are entering restricted space. Turn back." The reply came instantly. "This is High Chancellor Varnox. You are in no position to make demands, Captain. Surrender your fleet. Dismantle your fold technology. Submit to Council investigation, or we take it by force." There was no hesitation in his tone, no room for negotiation. Mira's crew stared at her, waiting. She stepped forward. "We will not surrender," she said clearly. "But we're not here to fight either." Varnox's voice sharpened. "You stand alone. Your allies have vanished. The Council has turned its back on you. You are a flicker in the dark, Captain, and I have come to extinguish it." Mira smiled slightly. "Then you're not seeing clearly." She tapped her console. At that moment, something shifted. Above and behind the Eventide, 3 more human ships decloaked, each glowing with the faint blue shimmer of activated fold cores. To Varnox's senses, it must have looked like they appeared out of thin air. And then behind them came 2 more, silent, waiting, perfectly positioned. 6 ships in total, small compared to the Zalari fleet. But their technology was something different, unpredictable, unmatched. Mira spoke again. "We won't fire unless fired upon. But I won't let Earth be bullied. You know what our ships can do. You've seen what we've built, and you have no idea how far we're willing to go." She paused, then added, "We don't want war, but we're ready for it." The channel went quiet. Then, after a long silence, Varnox spoke again. "I should destroy you for your arrogance, and I should turn your flagship inside out with a gravity pinch." Mira said, her voice steady, "But I haven't, yet. Ask yourself why." Varnox didn't reply. His ships held position. Mira gave a silent signal. A small pod launched from the Eventide, unmanned, carrying the original sabotage beacon, the internal scan footage, and the proof of Zalari infiltration. It streamed directly to the Council and every system that would listen. "You wanted to bury the truth," she said. "Now the galaxy will see it." Minutes passed. No weapons fired. No ships moved. Then slowly the Zalari formation turned. One by one their ships began to pull back. The flagship was the last to move. Varnox opened the channel one final time. His voice was colder than before. "This isn't over." "No," Mira replied. "It's just beginning." And then he was gone. Back on the Eventide, Mira stood at the viewport, looking out into space. The danger had passed for now. But she knew Varnox would try again. Not through fleets next time, but shadows, secrets and whispers. Still they had survived. More than that, they had stood their ground. Commander Harrow joined her, his voice quiet. "What now?" "We rebuild trust," she said. "One step at a time. Earth doesn't need to dominate. We just need to be respected and ready." He nodded. "We sent the files to the entire Council, open source, every line of code, every detail of the sabotage. Let the galaxy judge for itself." Mira turned and walked toward the command deck. The stars outside still shone cold and distant, but Earth's place among them had changed. They weren't shadows anymore. They were light. The Council met again on Virex 9, but the atmosphere had changed. The once buzzing hall now felt cautious, uncertain. Delegates spoke in lower tones. Eyes no longer swept past the human seat, as if it didn't matter. Now, when Mira Solon entered the chamber, every head turned. She wore the same dark blue uniform, the same calm expression, but the galaxy saw her differently now. She had stood against one of the oldest powers in the galaxy, revealed a plot to destabilize Earth, and had not fired a single shot. She had exposed the truth, and let the Council make its own judgment. The message had worked. 2 nights ago, Mira's transmission reached hundreds of systems. Council members, trade unions, independent colonies, and smaller empires watched the footage, a Zalari operative planting a tracker, falsified fleet footage, and a forged attack blamed on Earth. It was undeniable, and now the Council was forced to respond. The High Chair of the Tribunal, a neutral species of crystalline form known as the Corellian, spoke in soft, ringing tones. After full review of submitted evidence and security records, we acknowledge deliberate acts of sabotage directed at Earth by agents acting without Council authorization. As such, we withdraw sanctions, recognize Earth's technological sovereignty, and place the Zalari Dominion under review. A silent wave moved through the room. The word review might seem harmless, but for the Zalari it meant investigation, lost influence, and loss of control over many neutral systems. Mira stood to speak. Her voice remained steady and strong. Earth does not seek revenge, but we won't allow ourselves to be manipulated or isolated again. We want cooperation, not conflict. If we are to build a peaceful galaxy, it must be built on truth, not fear. There were no cheers, no dramatic applause. This was the Council, but respect could be felt. Even the Myra delegate bowed slightly as Mira returned to her seat. Across the chamber, Varnox was gone. Stripped of his title, he had returned to Zalari space under the pretense of internal reform. But Mira knew better. He hadn't been defeated, only slowed. Men like him did not give up power willingly. Still, Earth had gained something precious: time, recognition, a seat that mattered, and perhaps something deeper. Back aboard the Eventide, Mira entered her private chamber. The ship hummed quietly, systems running smoothly, the crew in high spirits. Earth Command had sent a short message: "We stand with you." Full authority confirmed. But Mira was thinking about something else. She walked to a secure console and placed a small device on it. The fragment recovered from the abandoned relay station, the one left behind with Elias's voice. Mira had spent the last 3 days decoding its structure with her AI team. The final sequence had just unlocked. She activated it. The screen lit up. Elias's face appeared again, clearer this time. "If you're hearing this, you've passed the first test." The artifact wasn't a relic. It was a door. It opens only to species on the edge of collapse, those desperate enough to see past their pride and fear. "We thought we were ready. We weren't." He looked older than she remembered. Tired, worn, but still sharp. "There's more out there, Mira. The technology wasn't just abandoned. It was planted, monitored, judged. And if Earth misuses it, they will return." He leaned closer. "But if we use it wisely, they may speak to us again." The message ended. The screen went black. Mira sat in silence. Her brother was alive, somewhere, somehow, and he was still guiding her. She stood slowly and walked to the observation bay. Beyond the glass, the stars were endless. Planets spun in silence. Light moved in long, patient arcs. She thought about how far Earth had come, from chaos and division to something stronger, more united, not perfect, but ready. She reached out, touching the glass with her fingers. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. But for now, Earth was safe. Her people were seen, and the galaxy had taken notice. Mira Solon smiled faintly.